Hey, welcome to the 42 Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Kajila. This is a space built primarily for athletes where their stories are told and shared with the world. The name 42 means for the athlete to the world, and that's exactly our mission. Along the way, we'll also dive into everything happening in our wonderful world of sports. So whether you're an athlete, a fan, or just love a good story, you are in the right place. Back again on the 42 Sports Podcast. I hope you had a great weekend and a lot of fun time with your friends and family over the weekend, ready to get into this new week. As a United fan, I can say, hey man, I'm in high spirits after winning against Sunderland 2-0. Mason Mount opening up the scoring, and then Benjamin Sesko later on doubling up the lead through a long throw-in. Well, not through a long throw-in, via a long throw-in, and then Delo threw it into him. And Sesko was able to capitalize off of that throw. And then also Liverpool lost, which I was watching that game, and it was 1-1. It was 1-0 for quite some time, and then Liverpool equalized, and then Estevao, I don't know how to say his name, Estevao Willian or whatever his name is, scored the winning goal. And Liverpool, now that's 3 away defeats in a row, 3 defeats in a row, 2 league defeats in a row. And there's a little bit of trouble in paradise. I think I said this last week. If Liverpool were to lose against Chelsea, and they did, there was going to be a lot of questions, I guess, starting to come up from all different sources, whether it's media, whether it's from the fans themselves. But I think it's not time to panic just yet for Arne Slot's side. There's a lot of new signings, a lot of firepower who, because of the price tags, you kind of expect them to, I guess, like kick off immediately, hit the road running or hit the ground running. But they've been struggling so far. Frimpong, Kirkers, Isak. Ekitike has been decent though. But the rest of them struggling to, how could I forget Wirtz? Florian Wirtz also struggling to gel with his Liverpool teammates. And then also we're seeing Mohamed Salah drop off quite a bit. If you're a Liverpool fan, not a great weekend. If you're a Barca fan, also not a great weekend, losing 4-1 to Sevilla. Real Madrid fans were celebrating that win over the weekend as well. And then also, if you are an All Blacks fan, also not a great weekend due to the Springboks winning the Rugby Championship for the second time in a row. Springboks essentially cementing themselves as, the kings of rugby. I mean, they've won back-to-back Rugby World Cups. Yes, they have won back-to-back Rugby World Cups and also Rugby Championships. So, they're the kings of rugby at the moment. There's no question, no doubt about it. And I'm super excited to see what the November tour holds for the Springboks. That's only in November. For now, we are going to be chatting a little bit about who we are as 42 Sports. And I spoke about this last week, Monday, briefly, about just explaining the name and who we are and why we exist. But on today's episode, also wanting to revisit that topic and maybe even expand a little bit more, just so that you understand what this podcast strives to achieve. And then as we grow, hoping to see change around us. So 42 Sports means for the athlete to the world. So the 4 means the 4 in 42 is for the athlete, and then the 2 in 42 is to the world. And so what I want to do is take any athlete story, specifically younger athletes, so high school athletes, athletes that aren't necessarily professional just yet, but are hoping to continue in their athletic journey and not have it end as soon as they matriculate. And so that's what I experienced, where all throughout high school, playing a bunch of sports, being relatively decent at some of them, playing like provincial level for one of them, and wanting to continue playing, but not really having much of an opportunity to do so. And so what I would like to create for South African athletes and athletes around the world is just a platform where they can share their story with their communities on a digital platform. So like this one, coming on a podcast and having a conversation about their athletic performance. And it's not only going to be soccer or rugby players. I know I've only spoken primarily about soccer and rugby this far on the podcast. That's just because those are the sports that are trending at the moment. And I mean, I think it's the Ryder Cup. That's where USA versus like Team Europe. That's like golf. I saw that happen. I just don't know much about golf. Not that we'll never do golf. It's just, at this stage, don't know much about golf. Not confident enough to report on it as of right now. But hopefully in the future, we'll have more sports such as golf and cycling, rowing, water polo, gymnastics, athletics, all of those different sports, because that's why also the name of this podcast is 42 Sports, is because that 42 also points to how many different sports we do have around us. And yes, I acknowledge that sometimes certain sports get more attention, like soccer and like rugby, like cricket, but there's a bunch more sports that kind of go under the radar. And so what I would like to achieve, what I would like to see happen on this show, is we have conversations with different athletes from different sports, different genders, different communities, different backgrounds, even different goals. Some athletes might not want to get a scholarship to an American university. Some athletes might want to get a scholarship to an American university or a university somewhere else around the world. And so really this platform exists for the athlete primarily, so that they can come here and they can benefit. Because what I've also seen in South Africa specifically is there's such a focus on the schools or the clubs that these kids represent, but not much of a focus on the individual athletes themselves. And I've seen this model in America where there is a lot of media attention on the kids. And there's different organizations. I think like Overtime is one of them, Ballers Life, and there's a bunch of other ones that track their journeys throughout high school as they enter into high school, even before high school. Some kids start getting attention a lot earlier on in their careers. But what happens is because of the media that is created around them, now there's more, focus from external teams and external sources, external clubs and all of that on these kids that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to discover them if they weren't on YouTube, if they weren't on Instagram, if they weren't on Twitter and so on. And so that would be a dream of mine, because I know that those American kids, those American athletes get a lot more attention, and because of that attention, they get more opportunity. They get more scholarships, they get more endorsements and sponsorship deals. And so if that could happen in a country like South Africa, where there's not much going on for the young athlete, this country has such a deep pool of talent. And it's a shame that oftentimes it goes unnoticed. We show up every now and then at the Olympics, or the Springboks winning the Rugby World Cup, or the Proteas won the Cricket World Cup recently. But there is such a diversity and depth to the athletic talent in South Africa. From athletics to rowing to cycling to soccer to basketball to cricket to tennis to squash, you name it. There's a talented South African athlete, more than one, out there waiting to share his or her story with the world. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Before we dive back into the episode, I'd love it if you could take a quick moment to support this podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leaving a review or a rating goes a long way. And if you're watching on YouTube, a like, a comment, or even subscribing would mean the world to me. All right, that's enough from my side. Let's get back into the show. So that would be the dream for 42 Sports and for the 42 Sports podcast, is to be in conversations with different athletes from different schools, different sports, different backgrounds, different cultures, athletes that have different goals in terms of where they want to be. Some athletes might want to be professional. Some athletes might want to go to university just to get a scholarship, and then from there they'll kind of hang up their athletic abilities and then proceed elsewhere with their careers. So there's a diversity when it comes to athletes. Not everyone is the same, and it's such a shame to me, and it's not me knocking down the local organizations that have highlighted high school sports. It's me appreciating what they've done, but there's something more that needs to be done for the individuals that represent the schools and the teams. Because what I've seen so far is just a focus on the schools or the clubs or the teams, and then the kids themselves don't really get much media attention. And so that's the primary purpose of the 42 Sports podcast and 42 Sports. If you wanted to know if it was a bit unclear up until this point, what we want to do is we want to bring athletes, different skills, different abilities, whatever, and we want to bring them here and we want to platform them to the world. We want to share their stories with the world. We want to cover them. We want to create highlights. We want to create content around that individual athlete to make them more marketable. And I know some people think of marketing as deceptive, and it's like, oh no, if this person's good enough, then eventually people will notice. And while that's not completely false, I think you also have to acknowledge in this new modern world that people often recognize or are made aware of certain products or people because of social media, because of YouTube, because of TikTok, because of Instagram. But if that specific product or if that specific person isn't made visible, how are you supposed to know about it if you're a coach or if you're a scout or if you're a team or a school or a university? How are you supposed to know about a talented kid in South Africa if you don't have access to, or you don't know anything about them? Because, I mean, if you're a university coach in America and you're trying to recruit certain players, it's not as if you don't value South Africa or other countries where there's not much attention. It's just you don't know about it. And it's not, you can't take a risk on something that you don't know or someone that you don't know. It's the same thing with how you and I would go about shopping. Like, I'm not going to buy a product that I don't know exists, right? Because I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to the shops and whatever's in front of me, and oftentimes there's like a choice that we do have, whatever's in front of me, I'm going to pick out of the different products that I see on display. And so it's the exact same thing with athletes, is those opportunities for them come because they're visible and they are marketed. So it's not a thing of being deceptive. It's about being truthful, but also shining their light with the rest of the world. And one way to do this is through media. And so that's what we want to do on the 42 Sports podcast. And I hope you understood my heart behind 42, and maybe you are now more caught up to speed with what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, who we're trying to market this for or towards. It's for high school athletes, younger athletes, amateur athletes, any athlete that is wanting to share more of themselves with the world. And once it's out there in the world or to the world, then we'll leave it up to God and see what He does. Whether it will lead to a scholarship opportunity or whether it will lead to signing a professional contract. I don't know. We can't control these things, but we are at least going to try and create more visibility. And when there's more visibility for these athletes, there'll also be more appreciation for the work that they're putting in and the work that they are doing. And we have this beautiful tool called media, and I think it's fair for us to utilize it and benefit those around us. That brings us to the end of today's episode. A bit different from what last week offered. Last week we were speaking more about global news, the Premier League and the Springboks primarily. And we will continue from time to time speaking about global sports because we love sports. All of us listening and I love sports. So we're going to obviously still speak about it, but we are going to try and move into a slightly different direction going forward, where we speak more so about what's happening around us and how we can share what's happening around us with the rest of the world. And it's also convenient timing. It's also convenient timing because it's the international break with soccer. So there's not really much news to speak about. So also in need of a content change, little adjustment. But nevertheless, going forward, we are going to try and also have more interviews, more discussions with young athletes. And if you maybe know of an athlete, maybe you are an athlete yourself, why don't you leave a comment and also a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and reach out and just send me your name, send me your details, and from there we will proceed and get into contact with you. But thank you so much for joining me on today's episode, on today's show, and I'm hoping that this week started off well, and I'm hoping that the rest of the week goes brilliantly as well. My name is Joshua Kijila, and this is the 42 Sports Podcast, for the athlete to the world.